Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Good morning, everybody. And it's wonderful to be back in sunny California. It's hot in New York, and in summer the center is closed. So in the summer, traditionally the Swami travels. And they were joking in New York. The Swami is trying to beat the New York heat by going to California and Calcutta. And they were saying, that's the way to do it, Swami. Words of our imagination. I was looking for a quote to suit this subject, and I found an incredible quote from none other than G.K. Chesterton. He says, how much happier you would be, how much more there would be of you if the hammer of some higher God were to smash your little cosmos. The hammer of a higher God would smash our little cosmos. This is what I call worlds of our imagination. What am I going to talk about? There is actually an old text of non-dual Vedanta called Panchadashi, which means 15 chapters on non-dual Vedanta. In the 4th chapter, it talks about the creation of God and our creation, Ishvara Srishti and Jiva Srishti, the duality projected by God and the duality projected by us, Ishvara duality and Jiva duality. And then it's a remarkable chapter which goes on to analyze that it's the duality projected by us, it's our creation, what we superimpose upon God's creation, that causes trouble, that gets us into trouble. It's the worlds of our imagination that is samsara. Samsara, the chapter says, samsara is not out there. What you see and hear and smell and touch is not samsara. I remember one Swami in the Himalayas saying that the creation of God never hurt anybody. It seems to be contrary. Of course, the creation of God hurts us. And isn't there disease and death and so many problems in the natural world? Quite apart from what we human beings create. But there are a lot of problems, a lot of suffering in the natural world. But he says with great emphasis, in Hindi he said it, Ishwar ki srishti kabhi dukh nahi deti hai bhala. The creation of Ishvara, the duality projected by Ishvara, never gives suffering to anybody. It's our own imagination that has got us into trouble. What is that and how does it work and what can we do about it? That's the theme of today's talk. The way it has been presented in the 4th chapter of the Panchadashi is that Advaita Jnana, the knowledge of non-duality, actually removes not Ishvara's duality, but the world projected by us. It removes that and gives us freedom. It's worth repeating. Enlightenment. What does enlightenment do? Enlightenment doesn't make the universe disappear in a poof, like a puff of smoke. No. You live in this world, I live in this world, and an enlightened person, Ramakrishna or Ramana Maharshi or Krishna or Christ, they lived in this world. This world did not disappear because they were enlightened. So clearly, enlightenment doesn't make the world disappear. But then what does it do? What does it do? How does it set us free from the suffering we have in this world? All right, this is how it goes. First of all, this creation, universe, Vedanta has a unique take on it. All the religions of the world, or at least most of them, the theistic religions, say that God created the universe. In Vedantic terms, Ishvara. Ishvara means God. God created the universe. In Vedanta, it's not God alone. It's a joint production between God and guess who? You. What a remarkable claim. that the universe is a creation of God and you. Now you would react to that by saying, I don't remember having been consulted by God or anybody else. Who asked me? I didn't design my life. I didn't fill out the forms. I didn't check the boxes. So how do I know that God created this universe with me? It works like this. Ishvara in Vedanta is none other than the ultimate reality, the non-dual Brahman that Vedanta talks about. And we too are that non-dual reality. That non-dual reality Brahman with the power of Maya is called Ishvara in Vedanta. Brahman plus Maya is Ishvara. Maya is the power which makes non-dual reality, makes it God. And this non-dual reality has the power to project this universe. Names and forms, people and plants and stars and quasars and quarks. All of this is projected by Ishvara with the power of Maya. This is the Vedantic idea. But what's interesting is the role that we play. What do we do? Ishvara does not project this universe arbitrarily. There is a method, I'm tempted to say a method in madness. There's a method behind it. It's not arbitrary. We get the universe, we get the life we deserve. It's our past karma, good and bad, which produces the life we deserve. We don't produce it ourselves. Ishvara does that with us. It does that for us, but according to our karma. So our collective karma of all the jivas, all the individuals, not just human beings, our collective karma results in the world we live in. That's the Vedantic idea. This is how God and us, Ishvara and Jiva, Jiva is the individual, you or I, Ishvara and Jiva project this universe together. Ishvara does all the heavy lifting, all the hard work, but according to what we need and what we deserve. Not as a punishment, not even as a reward, as a learning tool. This universe is like a school where we evolve into our spiritual heritage. That we are the non-dual Brahman. We do not seem to know that, and we suffer in this world. To develop into that, to evolve into that, God provides this. It's like parents. Kids want to play, and the parents provide the playground and the equipment and even the playmates, the kids who you play with. So in that way, this is all set out before us. This is the idea in Vedanta. Now, the way it is so designed is, we react to God's creation in different ways. Where does our samsara come in? First is, we have forgotten. One effect of Maya, one effect is to create this universe, but another effect of Maya in Vedanta, it veils. It veils the reality from us. The reality is that there is one existence, consciousness, bliss right here, right now. We do not recognize that. We do not know that. We do not feel it. It veils the reality from our vision. And then what happens? We, none other than that same Brahman, we, having forgotten our Brahman nature, find ourselves as a body-mind, as this individual, made of the elements. The ancients talked about the sky, the earth, and fire, and water, and air. And the body made of these 5 elements, this is before us in our awareness, and we get identified with it. This is who I am. And if somebody points out, what's this? I'll say, this is me. Who are you? I am this. And what is this? This is me. This intense identification. And then when we take our stand in this body, in this mind, and look out upon God's creation, then what happens is, some things seem nice to us. The air-conditioned room seems nice to us. The hot sun outside does not seem nice to us. For consciousness, hot or cold does not make a difference. But if you are embodied in a body, it makes a big difference. A few degrees temperature here and there, and life would be unsustainable on Earth. The global warming and all that. So, when you are set in this body, certain things seem pleasant. Nice food seems pleasant. Stale food seems unpleasant. It's because we are set in this body and identified with the mind. People who are nice to you, seems nice. We feel good about it. People who criticize you, say nasty things about you, we immediately have an unpleasant reaction. So set in this body and mind, we have multiple reactions. The author, Vidyaranya, he gives the example of a gem, but it was 700 years ago in India. So you would give gifts of gems maybe to people. Nowadays you give gifts of gadgets, iPhone. Let's take an iPhone example. Instead of, I'm nothing against Android, by the way. Let's take that example. The same iPhone, to the person who gets it, who buys it or gets it as a gift, is a source of joy, of pleasure, maybe pride. And to the person who did not get it or buy it, is a source of envy or irritation or disappointment. And to the person who is not interested, it might be a monk who doesn't need iPhone, or it might be a person who lives in a very primitive culture who doesn't even know what a phone is. To him, it's just a little bit of plastic, shiny bit of plastic. So to a person like that, indifferent, doesn't make a difference. So the author says, our reaction to God's creation is priya. I like it. I want it. I would like to have more of it. Apriya. I dislike it. I hate it. I want to get rid of it or never come in contact with it. It could be a person, it could be a thing, it could be a job, it could be a food, it could be anything. I dislike it. Apriya. Or upeksha. Upeksha means indifference. It makes no difference to me. I have no particular emotional reaction to that particular thing or person or job or place. These are the three reactions. Priya, apriya, upeksha. I like it, I dislike it, I'm indifferent to it. And all three are fundamentally misguided. You know why? Because if it is true that everything is Brahman, why would one particular appearance of Brahman be beloved to you? Why would one particular appearance of Brahman be unpleasant for you? Or why would you be indifferent to another appearance of Brahman if you knew that all of them are in reality Brahman? Are you with me? That from a non-dualistic point of view, I like this, I don't like this, I'm indifferent to a third thing, all of it is misguided because we do not see the non-dual reality behind all of them. Note how saints and sages of different cultures and religions had this, what is unfortunately translated into English as same-sightedness. Sounds like an ocular defect. Samadrishti. Friend and a foe and a person whom that person does not know, all are equally beloved to the saint. The saint does not particularly like anybody, particularly dislike anybody. Anybody who particularly dislikes another person is not a saint, not a spiritual person. So, how can they do that? Some persons are nice, some persons are obnoxious, some persons are indifferent. Then how can you have the same reaction to everybody? Because the saint sees through. The saint does not stop at the skin, does not even stop at the behavior, does not even stop at our language, sees through and sees a spiritual reality, a divine reality within all of us, which we miss. We don't see that. We have a reaction of priya, apriya, upeksha. Another example he gives is something that's familiar to all of us. The author says, imagine a lady in a family. She is a daughter to somebody. She is a wife to her husband. She is a mother to her child. She is a sister-in-law. She is a sister, and so on. She is a colleague in her place of work, and so on. And to many others, she's a stranger. They don't know her at all. The same person. He gives an example of the same person who evokes completely different reactions in different people. These reactions belong to the worlds of our imagination, what Chesterton calls your little cosmos. Your little cosmos. And now, the next step the author takes is, this is the source of our trouble. It's not the sky or the earth or the fire or the water created by Isvara. What is created by us, the layer we throw upon God's creation, that is the source of our trouble. And he goes about proving it in a remarkable way. He says, Consider this example. Nowadays, philosophers call them mind experiments or thought experiments. But it's interesting that 700 years ago, this philosopher says, consider this example. It's a nasty little example, but let's consider it. He says, imagine there's a person whose son lives in a far land, in a distant land. And remember, this is way before internet and telephones, and 700 years ago in India, distant land. And a liar comes and tells this gentleman, your son is dead. Whereas the son is actually not dead. Immediately this person suffers agonies. So much suffering, so much misery, so much sadness and grief for something that's entirely in his mind. It's not reflected in God's creation. In God's creation, the boy is fine. It's doing very well. It's just that news. It's often that a news comes, somebody puts in some data, something into our mind, and we go into anxiety and uneasiness and misery. Whereas that might actually not be reflected in truth in God's creation. What is happening in God's creation is different, and what's happening in our minds is different. And then he gives the other example, the counter example. Imagine that poor gentleman, his son is actually dead, but nobody tells him. The other case, the person's son is dead, but nobody has told him, news has not come. He's happy. Makes no difference to him, he's happy. Something that has happened in God's creation has no impact on this person because it's not there in his mental world. I've seen this sometimes with people who are delusional or deeply depressive. When you deal with such persons, you see there's nothing really wrong in the world outside. But from their perspective, it's terrible. William Styron, who wrote Sophie's Choice, a very deeply depressive book, if you read that. If you've not read it, don't read it. It's guaranteed to make you feel bad. I wondered what kind of person could have written this. He was a brilliant author. Then I researched him, Googled him today, would say, and found out that he suffered from deep depression in those days when good medicine was not available to him. And then he wrote an essay, a long essay. What's it like to be in deep depression? It's called Memoirs of Madness, William Styron. And it makes very interesting reading because he suffered from it himself and he's a talented author. He could really put it into words. You can actually put yourself in the place of such a person and feel, empathize. But then he says, at one time I was so miserable, I decided to kill myself. And luckily his suicide attempt failed and they medicated him and all that, and finally he recovered. And then the interesting thing is, when I look back upon that attempt, I am amazed because there was nothing wrong. I felt so terribly bad, miserable. I couldn't just go on living. Death seemed to be the only option. And yet today, after some time, I saw there is no problem. There was no problem at all. There was nothing wrong with the world. So it's in the case of some severely disturbed persons, people who are suffering. But the teacher tells us we are all in the same category. We are all in the same boat. Nobody is making us suffer except ourselves. How does that work? How does that work? I know there will be questions in the mind. That's not true, Swami. We may exacerbate our suffering, but there is real suffering. Even in God's creation, the body, for example, gets a disease and there is pain, maybe chronic pain. So how can you deny that? We'll come to that. But I'm reminded of the medical conference I attended in Calcutta before I came here. I was supposed to give a talk on talk therapy. On pain. The whole conference was on pain. There were 400 and 500 doctors. They were all about, its discussion was on pain and different sessions going on. Medical doctors know how it is. So one session was on talk therapies. And one doctor there, he gave a presentation showing that pain medication actually does much less than we think it does. He drew big circles, an outer circle and middle circle and a small inner circle. And he said actual physical pain and our total discomfort. Actual physical pain for the time it is there and we feel it is this little inner circle. Little inner circle. And Our anxiety about it's going to hurt, it's coming back again, the pain is coming, it's going to hurt. That creates the middle circle. And the associated social disability, I can't go and do this. People with chronic pain came and gave talks about their lives. So many ways our life is crippled by pain. So all those things, social things which come into our mind, all of that taken together is the total discomfort. But the real discomfort is that tiny little circle inside. The real physical pain from our nervous system. And he went on to point out something more startling. The pharmaceutical companies would hate him for that. He said, look, I'm letting you into a dirty little secret. The secret is this: even for that little pain, half the time the medications we prescribe don't work well. They have plenty of side effects, and they actually do not tackle that pain too well. Half the time, he says, or more than half the time. So you see, our creation, even the serious problems which you find in the world or in the physical body, there are umpteen number of cases of people who are enlightened, sages, diseased body, body in pain, dying body. They're completely in bliss. How do they do that? When there is actually, you would say, there is a problem in God's creation. In the physical body, there's a real problem. There's a real pain. There's real death, real loss. And yet they are in complete peace. They are at peace. How do they do that? You don't even have to be a sage or a saint or enlightened. I will not reveal details because of privacy. But there was this person who, I was in New York, got in touch with me and said, I would like to speak with you over Skype. And generally, so many requests come, I sort of put them off. I said, yes, we'll see. And then this person, a lady, she said, I don't have time, I'm dying. So I said, of course, I'll speak with you. And then I spoke with her, and I don't know if she was reaching out for help, but I think ultimately I was helped. I saw all of these things we talk about being validated. She has been a spiritual seeker all her life in Vedanta and Buddhism and all that. And I watched her and listened to her. She had only a few spiritual questions, never complained about her condition. She was in a very bad shape. And as she faded away, the last time I spoke, her caregiver said that she's fading away a few hours more maybe. Last time we spoke, so calm, I can never forget it. So peaceful. And the room, she was in a hospice. The room, it was a wooden room, I don't know where exactly, lit up. It looked like a shrine, shining in light. And she seemed to be somehow luminous. And she said that I'm going to die now. And I said, no, you are immortal. It's just an adventure. This body will drop away. And she said, yes, I am immortal, Swami. I have absolutely no regrets, and I go into it with peace and expectation. And then nothing, a couple of days, and then her caregiver got back and said she passed away in deep quietness. I sat with her. It was like a meditation chamber. It's possible. It's actually possible. So what the teacher demonstrates here is, it is in our mind, like the person who got the wrong information that his son is dead, reacted terribly, broke down. The person who did not get the information that actually the son was dead did not react at all. So it's in the mind. Now, what do you do about it? Here a question comes. This question is raised in the text itself. A yogi, path of meditation. This person asked the question, so your problem is in the mind? Yes. Okay. Then let's control the mind. Let's shut down the mind in deep meditation. In samadhi, the world disappears from you and the functioning of the mind ceases. Chitta vritti nirodha. Cessation of the modifications of the mind. That solves your problem. You remain as the peaceful self within. Mind has ceased functioning. If mind ceases functioning, then nothing from the world outside will come in. The author quotes from Shankaracharya saying, how does the world enter into us? Through the 5 gates of the senses. Through our eyes, through our ears, through our sense of smell and taste and touch. Through these 5 gates, we suck in the world from outside and pour it into the mind. And Shankaracharya says that he gives a beautiful example of molten copper. When you pour it into a particular mold, then you get, that's how statues are made. You melt it down and then pour it into a mold, it'll take a shape. He says when the impulses come in from the world, eyes report something, ears report something, the nose reports something. All of this, the mind like molten copper takes the form in your mind. You are looking at this right now. You can see a Swami standing and speaking here. But what's actually happening is, it's in your mind. Your sense organs, even modern medicine will agree with this. Modern physiology will agree with this. Your mind takes in inputs from outside, through the senses, and then the mind takes the form inside yourself. The mind takes the form of a room, of the table, of the Swami. What you are seeing is entirely in your brain. It generates the images in your mind. Now the question is, in that case, let's just practice meditation. Quieten the mind down. Quiet mind, peaceful mind, no trouble. Because as you said, all trouble is in the mind. And it need not be, this logic, it need not be just samadhi. It sounds very rarefied, very different, something meant for yogis. But the same logic works for people who are, for example, alcoholic. What are they trying to do? Drown their sorrows in forgetfulness. How do they attain forgetfulness? Through drugs, through drinking. Or people who are drug addicts. Trying to forget. What is this trying to forget? It's seizing the modifications of the mind so that the suffering does not come up in the mind. This is what is meant by, what the yogi tries to do through meditation. Meditation is a very rarefied spiritual way of doing it. And drugs and alcohol are a very short-term, self-defeating way of doing it. But basically the logic there is the same. The world is troublesome. I don't want to bring the world into my mind. To which the non-dualist replies. First of all, he says, this method will not work. Whether you are in deep meditation or whether you drink yourself into a stupor, you're going to wake up. You're going to come out of meditation, you're going to come out of that stupor, and the world is still there. This world is still there, you have to confront it. Even the greatest of meditators who might stay in samadhi all life long, what will happen in the next life? Open your eyes and there is the world again. It won't work. Running away will not work. Avoiding will not work. We must confront reality as it is. The crucial verse which follows this, the yogi says, okay, what do you recommend? The non-dualist says, what will work is non-dual knowledge. I am Brahman. And all of this which I experience is none other than Brahman. I indeed am all of this, the good and the bad and the ugly, whatever I see in front of me, all of that, I alone am. This knowledge of non-duality, one reality everywhere, inside and outside, that will solve your problems. Recognize the Brahman behind the appearance. Don't stay at the level of the appearance. Now, crucial question is again asked by the opponent. And the answer, this forms the nexus, the cornerstone of today's talk. The answer which will come. This opens the door to enlightenment. The question here is, crucial question. And the answer is very interesting. The question is, you are saying samadhi and all those things will not work. Only non-dual knowledge will work, that everything is one Brahman. There's no difference anywhere whatsoever. It's all Brahman. That knowledge will work. Yes. Then the person comes back with, it will never work. Why? Because open your eyes, my friend. Where is non-duality? It's all duality here. It's all duality. There are people, there are differences, there is good and there's bad. How can you deny the evidence of your eyes? The only way is to erase this in meditation. If you have got an experience of duality, how will you get knowledge of non-duality? You see the question. If you see the question that I'm seeing this world, and I'm seeing good, I'm seeing bad. even if it is only in my mind, but that's my experience. Where is this precious non-dual existence, consciousness, bliss of yours? Nowhere in sight. This is the question. Are you with me in the question? Now, the answer is very interesting. He says, I'll quote the original verse and then we will spend some time on the answer. The non-dualist replies to this. Anivrite api isha srishte dvaite tasya mrishatmata buddhva brahmadvaitam bodhum shakyam vastu ekatva vadinaha. He says, we who are non-dualists, who recognize the oneness of the universe, vastu ekatvavadi, those who say there is one reality, even without erasing the creation of Ishvara, even without erasing this creation which you experience, even without erasing it, we realize the duality to be an appearance. It's not real. We recognize, we experience the duality, but we recognize this is an appearance. We recognize the oneness behind this duality. And our attention is always on the oneness, not on the apparent duality. It's not on the good, not on the bad. It's the same existence, consciousness, bliss, which appears as the good or the bad. It's not on the high or low. It's not on the rich or poor. It's the one existence, consciousness, bliss, which is appearing in these ways. You may say that sounds pretty cool, but how does it actually work? It's like this. Suppose I have a pot in my hand, a classic example in Vedanta, because mostly I think they had pots in ancient cultures. Yeah, I mean, if you go to an archaeological site when they're digging, what do they find? Pottery, yes. So pot, you have a pot. And it's a pot, you can clearly see it. You call it a pot, you can put things in it, use it like a pot, and it's shaped like a pot. What else could it be? Now, we are told, it's a pot, don't worry about it. But it has a cause. There's a material out of which it is made, and the cause is clay. The cause is clay. Look for the clay. Where is the clay? Where is not the clay? The top of the pot is clay, and the bottom of the pot is clay. The sides are clay. Inside it's clay. Outside. In fact, the pot is through and through clay only. Yeah, that's true. So, take one more step. You agree that it's only clay and nothing but clay? Yes. Can you show me a pot apart from the clay? Are there two things here? If I ask you, what's real? Is it a pot or is it clay? What is real? Some people will be, tempted to say both. But it's not both. If it was both, then I could legitimately ask you, I'll keep the clay, you take the pot. I could legitimately ask you, show me the pot, show me the clay separately, put the pot here and put the clay here. You cannot. You cannot. Because the pot is nothing but an appearance of the clay. It's been shaped in that form. It's a form. It's a name. And it's a particular use. You can put things in it. But once you recognize the cause is clay, the substance is clay, the reality is clay there, you know it. Even after knowing it, it doesn't prevent you from calling a pot a pot. It doesn't prevent you from putting things in the pot. It doesn't look any different. The name continues, the form continues, the use continues. In Sanskrit, nama, rupa, vyavahara. All three of them continue as such. But now what has happened? What have we accomplished by this strange little experiment, thought experiment? You now realize pot is an appearance of the reality called clay. Okay? Pot is an appearance of the reality called clay. Here there is one reality, existence, consciousness, bliss, of which this universe is an appearance. Once you recognize that reality, it's not that the universe will disappear. God's creation of this universe will continue. But you recognize that through and through, all of it is in reality, existence, consciousness, bliss. It's the stage upon which the drama of life is being staged. It's the screen upon which the movie you call your life is being played. Recognize the screen. The moment you recognize the screen, your life becomes a movie. You see, where is the only case where evil can be applauded? Where is the only case where suffering can be borne with a smile? Where you might even say, wonderful, what a great thing. Where is the only case? Can you think of it? where evil, suffering, a movie, yes, in Hollywood. Where you see something terrible. Maybe King Kong coming and smashing up everything and something terrible is happening. Or there is an earthquake, the great feared earthquake of California, and half of California disappears under the water or something. And what do? You stand up and applaud, well done. Give this guy an Oscar for special effects. Exactly the same is the point of view of the enlightened person. That will be our point of view. An enlightened person sees this world. And you see, and the enlightened person goes, how wonderful. What a creation. One existence, consciousness, bliss, and yet appearing as stars and planets and people and suffering and joy and pain and pleasure. Bravo, good job. Give God an Oscar. There's actually such people. Sri Ramakrishna talks about a person in Dakshineshwar who would live in a little hut, enlightened person, a monk, and who would come out once in a while, look around the world, the river and the temple and the skies and the people, and would exclaim, wah, wah, bravo, bravo, and clap and dance and go back to his hut again. You see, what happens after enlightenment, three possibilities are there. Swami Gambhirananda writes this. He says, once a person is enlightened, what is the attitude towards God's duality? Here, there's God's duality here. What's the attitude? Three attitudes could be there. One attitude is, I have realized Brahman is the only reality, existence, consciousness, bliss. I will remain immersed in that. I have nothing more to do with this world of appearance. Narendranath, Swami Vivekananda, when he first got Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Sri Ramakrishna asked him, so what do you want to do now? He said, I want to remain immersed in that. I want to remain immersed in that. Sri Ramakrishna scolded him. He said, fie upon you. I thought you would be like a great banyan tree under whose shade thousands will get comfort. And so Narendranath became Swami Vivekananda. Luckily, that's why we are sitting here today. If he had remained in Samadhi, good for him, but we would have been nowhere. That's one attitude, and that's not a bad attitude. It's a high spiritual attainment. The second attitude is like the man who came out and said, bravo, wonderful show. Is that person recognizes God's creation, but sees it as a magic show, Maya. The good and the bad, the evil and the nice, and pain and pleasure, all of that is a magic show to that person. And sees it all as bliss. Even the bad as bliss. Sri Ramakrishna dying of cancer, when Hari Maharaj asks him, how are you today, sir? I can't eat, it's so much pain. And then the young boy, Hari, says, cruelly one would think, pain? You are in bliss. I can see that you are in bliss. And Sri Ramakrishna bursts out laughing and says, the rascal has caught me out. He is into the secret. He's got it. Just a few days ago, we were reading a letter written by Swami Shivananda to one of his disciples, many, many years ago. Swami Shivananda was a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. He's saying, the body is not keeping too well. My body is not keeping too well. But ever floats in my vision the one existence consciousness bliss. He says, by the grace of Sri Ramakrishna, the vision of the one existence consciousness bliss transcending this body ever is available to me. I pray to the Lord that he may grant you such a vision also. This seeing through to the reality behind, this is what gives us liberation. Then this world can continue. So this is the second attitude. And there is a third attitude of an enlightened person. Not remaining immersed in Brahman, not saying this is a magic show, but heart melts with compassion. That there are so many who suffer. If they only could get this vision, if they could only get enlightenment, the Buddha, the last temptation of Buddha was when Mara said, okay, you are enlightened. Now merge into nirvana. Why look back upon this world? Nobody's going to understand what you're going to say. Buddha said, some will understand. And then he turned and gave his first sermon in Sarnath. And that's how today we have Buddhism. So all the great spiritual masters of humanity are of the third category, that they shared their spiritual wealth with us. So these are the three ways an enlightened person can react. And all three are, of course, very great and exalted. Now, what do we do? This duality which we have created, the author says it's not all bad. It's not all bad. Our duality, the Jiva duality, is not all bad. He divides it into two categories. He says, this duality we have created, there's a spiritual duality and there's a non-spiritual duality. A spiritual duality and a non-spiritual duality. The terms he uses are cumbersome. Shastriya Jiva Dvaitam, which literally translates into scriptural, individual created duality, and Ashastriya Jiva Dvaitam, non-scriptural, individual created duality. But basically, let's put it this way, a spiritual duality and a non-spiritual duality, both false, both projected by us. But the author says, here is a great thing to learn. One has to overcome and reject the non-spiritual duality, our own projection, and take the help of the spiritual duality, again our projection. Take the help of that and then attain enlightenment. I'll repeat that. Sri Ramakrishna put it in very simple terms. He called it Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya. Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya. The Maya of knowledge, the Maya of ignorance. This non-spiritual duality is the Maya of ignorance. What is it? Kama, passion or lust. Krodha, anger. Lobha, greed. Moha, delusion. Not seeing the truth for what it is. Delusion. Mada, pride and arrogance. Matsarya is jealousy, intense jealousy. These are all manifestations of non-spiritual duality. And he says the non-spiritual duality can also be divided into two parts, intense and mild. The intense ones are these: lust and anger and greed and arrogance and delusion and jealousy. And the mild form of non-spiritual duality is, sometimes the mind churns away. It's not that I'm angry or greedy or full of hatred. It's just the mind doing its thing. Churns away and all the time chattering inside and going on. Inconsequential. Thinking about the job, thinking about that person, thinking about this or that. But one thing it will not do is stop. It will not shut up. Now this chattering away of the mind, this is called mild non-spiritual duality. And both of them have to be given up. How do you give up both of them? He says, take help of the spiritual duality. What is spiritual duality? He says all the spiritual paths are open before us. Karma yoga, unselfish action in the service of God. Bhakti yoga, love and devotion to the Lord. Raja yoga, meditation, which you had rejected 2 minutes ago. He says meditation is very good. It's not real in ultimately, because only Brahman is real ultimately, but it's a spiritual duality. It will help you. And of course, the path of knowledge, the Vedanta which we have got here. All of this is useful for overcoming the non-spiritual duality. He makes a very interesting point. This world, my friend, you cannot erase. It's not your creation. It's God's creation. What can you destroy? You can't even destroy, even with all our machines, we cannot destroy the slightest piece of matter. He says, Swami, don't you know about atom bombs and hydrogen bombs? But they just convert the matter into energy. You cannot do anything in this universe, ultimately. You can just play with it. God has given it to us. You cannot erase this universe. There's no escape from this. God has given this to us. Number one. The second point he makes is, the author, very interesting. He says, you need not erase it. You need not run away from the world. It does not harm you. You need only recognize that the reality is Brahman in all of this appearance. You don't have to switch off the movie. Recognize it's a movie. It can't hurt you anymore. Recognize a movie for a movie. It can't hurt you anymore. How do you recognize a movie for a movie? You have become part of the movie. You have become too absorbed. Step back and see its pictures on a screen. Its pictures on the existence, consciousness, bliss, which you are, which I am. This entire universe is that. So you need not destroy this universe also. You cannot destroy this universe. You need not. You need not hide in deep meditation in a cave. And third, he says, you should not. Why? Because in this projection, in this duality, projected duality, there happens to be Vedanta and Vedanta society too, which helps us, with the help of which, with spiritual practice, religion, meditation, good works, the path of knowledge, spiritual teaching, the spiritual master, the Upanishads, all of this is available in this projected duality. And it's very useful for us. I remember even some 700 years before Shankaracharya, Nagarjuna, the great propounder of the Buddhist school of the void, Shunyavadi, in his text, Moola Madhyama Kakarika, there is a verse which says, truth is of two levels. One is what appears to us. He calls it samvritti. And one is the ultimate truth. What is the ultimate truth? He does not say it's Brahman, he says it's the void, Shunyam. But all right, the point he makes there is, samvrittim anashritya paramartham nadigamyate. Unless you take the help of this relative truth, the lower truth, the higher truth, the absolute can never be realized. This is false. This is an appearance, but you have to take its help. You have to start here. You have to begin at the beginning. And then you will realize that. If you dismiss it, oh, it's false, so why do I need it? I have to go to the roof. Why do I need a ladder? Roof is what I need. You need the ladder. You climb to the roof and let go of the ladder. The Vedanta says, Yatra Veda Aveda Bhavanti. Once you are enlightened, you realize Brahman everywhere. Don't need Vedanta. You don't even have to come and attend classes at the Vedanta Society. You have got it already. You may still retain Vedanta for your enjoyment and for the purpose of teaching others, but you don't need it anymore. You are not dependent upon it anymore. The author says, having attained enlightenment, remain centered in it. And he even says, don't read too many books after that. It's in the Upanishads that once you get this conviction, this clarity, stay there. Stay there. Don't go back to read more books and more lectures. So, at that point, then all the spiritual practices become useful. They are still duality, including the highest spiritual teaching of the Upanishads, still duality. And at one point, you have to let them go. You have to let them go. You can't cross a river and say, the boat helped me so much, I'll carry the boat with me. You cannot. You should not. It's like a person trying to do a pole vault, and says, oh, I have to go over that one. Why do I need the pole? First mistake. The second mistake is, I use the pole to go up there. The pole helped me so much. Let me hold on to it. It come crashing down again. There's a time and a season to use the pole, and there's a time and a season to let go of the pole when you cross over. So all the Vidya Maya, all that duality which is projected, which is helpful to us, has its place. Karma Yoga has its place. It tackles the intense non-spiritual duality. Hatred and anger and greed. Karma Yoga tackles that. Meditation and devotion have their place. The mild non-spiritual duality, where the mind goes from daydreams up to fantasies and delusions. All of that, the mild non-spiritual duality, those are controlled by meditation. In fact, the author recommends Dirgha Pranava Ucharanam. In this book, he says one sample he gives is prolonged chanting of Om. That helps you to settle down the wandering, chattering mind. It won't work straight away. I can see people, okay, I got it. I just have to chant Om continuously. Go back home and chant Om. But that's the mild non-spiritual duality. If the strong, intense non-spiritual duality is there, I hate somebody and I really, really want that iPhone, then if you sit and chant Om all day long, it won't help. Those desires have to be tackled at that level. All of this gets together and helps us to attain enlightenment. I've almost run out of time, but we have a Q&A session after this. And I'm sure you've got a lot of questions. The central message of today's talk, the worlds of our imagination. Now the quote makes sense, what Chesterton said. How much happier you would be. And the next one is so wise. How much more of you there would be if the hammer of a higher God were to smash your little cosmos. This world of our imagination, which like a cocoon we have built around, spun around ourselves, and we cannot break free. The butterfly cannot come out. It's stuck. And we have to come out of this. And the hammer is this Vedanta, which shows us that there is an underlying reality called existence, consciousness, bliss. Focus on that, center on that, and then enjoy the life of the projected duality of God. It's the movie which you can enjoy. The good and the bad all become enjoyable. We sing a song in Belur Math, the monks and brahmacharis, it was a favorite of Swami Brahmananda. Once in Kashi, Benares, Holy Mother asked Swami Brahmananda, why do you need the grace of the Divine Mother for enlightenment? And he sang this song and he danced and lost in ecstasy. Shankari Charane Mon Magno Hai Raya. What it means is, oh my mind, remain immersed in the feet of the Divine Mother. These three worlds are false. What you see in the waking, what you see in the dream, what you experience, the blankness in deep sleep. All the three worlds might mean heaven, earth, and hell. These three worlds are false. What is real is the Mother. Remain immersed, oh my mind, remain in bliss, immersed at the feet of the Divine Mother. And this stream of this world, sail through it gently. The stream of life, let it flow past gently. It'll go one day. It's going until it will go. Don't suffer unnecessarily. Remain in bliss and sail gently through the river of life. This is a beautiful teaching. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.